Hey man, yo kakampe. Africano.
Hello and welcome back to Conversations in Black. I'm Jordi Quilu, your host. For this Conversation in Black, we're pleased to welcome Madam Debora Kayembe, who is the 54th Lord Rector of the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. And with her, we'll be discussing about the Freedom Walk campaign, the anti-racism education. But first, we'll talk also about the need and the importance of grassroots advocacy, political organizing as an instrument of change within the country. So without further ado, let us welcome the Lord Rector. Madam Rector, welcome to Conversations in Black, and thank you for having this time with us.
Thank you very much. And really, I'm very grateful that you have called me to be with you today. So thank you so much.
Yeah. So before we get into the core of our topic, so first I wanted, because I saw that you are a lawyer as well, and you practice mainly in human rights, immigration law, and I'm a lawyer as well. So I wanted to know what drove you into law, why you chose law. That's the first thing. And second of all, why not criminal law, corporate law, those big money area? You chose human rights and immigration law. What's the motivation?
Well, maybe for those who did the discipline, the law studies in the Congo, in the context of Congo, there is not really a focus on one discipline. Mm-hmm. It's a bit larger, a big spectrum. And at that time, I was doing any opportunity I have to practice law, but also I was still doing my pro bono for human rights, because that was something that I was passionate about, and I invest so much about that in the Congo. But the point about Scotland, even about the UK in general, when I arrived in the UK, it was the shock of racism, what I found out in the system when I arrived. Mm-hmm. I saw a system which is very discriminative, a system that were putting in a systematic way foreigners or people will not be educated in Britain, or people not be born in Britain, into such poverty, and then that pushed me to do a bit more about choosing human rights and choosing humanitarian issues. Then when I came back 16 years ago, I came back then when I came into in the UK, I was a refugee. So I was like many other people around the world who have chosen to go to new places to start a new life, but then being confronted with the reality of racism and discrimination. So I find myself in that fight before that, and at the time I arrived. So I invest on it. That's it. Mm-hmm. It was just about passion and nothing else than that.
Yeah. So just for some other people might be listening in the UK, elsewhere, they want to push back. They're like, you're talking about racism and stuff like that, but here you are as the Lord Rector of the University of Edinburgh. Isn't that a sign of progress? Is anyone stopped you? You were educated, qualified, and then you got elected. So they'll say, why are you still talking about racism? Haven't we moved past that? Sort of the post-racial UK, post-racial Scotland?
Well, I don't think we are as post-racial in Scotland or post-racial UK. We're still very much on the racial system, in a systematic racism in the UK in general, in particular in Scotland. People might not know this, but I became Lord Rector of Edinburgh University, not because the University of Edinburgh wanted to, because the student and trade union members of the university wanted me to become Lord Rector at Edinburgh University, probably because they found in me someone who's in between what you call the nobility of being a lord and the simplicity of being socialist. So in between, they found somebody in between, and they thought, because these are difficult times, these are challenging times, and because of the lack of transparency that they've experienced with the university in the past, they want somebody who can come in and talk frankly to the management of the university, talk frankly to the city, talk frankly to the community. And somebody who in the past has managed to build a voice for the voiceless. So they thought I was the right person for that. But I don't think me becoming Lord Rector of Edinburgh University means that Scotland is now in the post-racial era. That's not true. We are very much in this time of the challenging of the systematic racism in Britain in general and in Scotland. And it's about time just to open our eyes around this issue and start talking about it. Because we never talk about this before in Scotland. It's not like in America. You know, in America, people talk about it for many years, but here we have a systematic hypocrisy and we have to fight that.
All right. But, and then they'll say like the students, because you talked about the students, and the students are part of the society as well. Isn't that a sign that a new generation is seeing these things differently? Because they'll say like are they preventing, because the other argument out there is that they're taking in refugees from all over the world, of of African descent, South American descent, Asian descent. For a racist country, they wouldn't be taking in as many refugees. And then as you see kids, they're going to school, they're being educated, there's program in place. So maybe they might talk about prejudices, but not really racism. Do you see any difference in that, or?
Listen, there's definitely racism in Scotland. There's no denial about that. The thing is, you need to understand what Scotland is made of. Scotland is a place where you have the incarnation of white privilege. Okay, a university like University of Edinburgh, it is the university dedicated for children, for the wealthy white people. That's something has to be said, okay? And it gives very little of people of different background than white, and gave very little to disadvantaged families. So we have special program for disadvantaged family, but it's not wider. It's not wide. It's not available to everyone, okay? If you have the opportunity to come across it, you can have it, or you cannot. You may not have it. There is a new generation of students of Edinburgh University, but there was no, I think it's what happened in America during last summer with the death of George Floyd, has made the whole world to look around and say, okay, what's going on here? Is that what this define us? And many of people around in Europe are saying, oh no, we are not America. We don't behave like America. Maybe they want to show that to the world. But the reality of my journey from refugee to rector, it's all about racism. And it's all about the way I handle it, the way I present another format of fighting racist and racism. That what make the university to say, okay, this is something different. We prefer this than the other one.
Then just that's a good transition then, as the Lord Rector, then what you wish your legacy to be once you're done. What do you wish your legacy to be? What would you achieve? What would you be a change agent and bring about that change? Because other critics out there, they tell, oh, you guys always complain about Black lives, this, racism, that, but you're not preventing. So now you are in a position of power. You have a platform so that you can effect and exert some change. So what do you want your legacy to be? And what sort of will be your agenda going forward in terms of dismantling?
As I've said the first time, on the first day, my legacy will be the legacy of peace and justice. There is some kind of war in Scotland right now, white versus Black. While one single Black race, the white comes to the stone and throw the stone to the Black. I don't want that. I want a legacy of peace. I want the legacy of dialogue. I want a legacy of tolerance. This is what I'm looking for. And I did say this, I want to see everything that's been done in university, whether it's the student, whether it's the staff, whether it's the academic, the work they're doing to contribute in the better world must be valued.
Mhm.
We need to take all that into consideration. We can't ignore the work of others. This is what happened. People are doing excellent work, excellent proposal, excellent policies. They're just being ignored. I don't want to ignore that. I want to put in the spotlight, and I want people to take it and to make them applicable within their communities.
Mhm.
The legacy of justice is a very difficult one, because then we still have to struggle with the police system in Scotland. They seem to have their eyes closed on incidents to what is related to race and color. And that's something we need to work on in Scotland. It's definitely there. It's no different than America. So the legacy of justice, there's going to be a lot of work to do around us. The other legacy I'm looking at is the reducing the inequality, because the gap in inequality with the pandemic has widened. So you can see how the rich has carried on with the life and they become richer, and how the poor are still struggling and they're still dying. So that inequality, we need to tackle it. And that brings today with the reality of the nationalism on vaccinations. They have vaccine that is good enough for Britain, and some vaccine are not good enough for Africa. So all this legacy of seeing that we as a planet, we need to learn to look after each other, and we need to heal our wounds through forgiveness. But reparation and dialogue, tolerance are the key to it, nothing else.
Great. So then that brings us to the main point here about the grassroots advocacy, because you also came from that, either be with the not like political party before, but just as a activist, as a campaigner with different issues like you've tackled about, refugees, immigration rights, and racism and stuff. So for the young Black Britons out there, young Black kids in Scotland, because truth of the matter, they're home, they're going anywhere. So how can they advocate? How can they fight so that they live that justice, that accountability, that equality of opportunity, that they be given the same opportunity? So what do you think it's important for them to be engaged socially, and to be engaged as citizens so that they can effect real changes?
One of the things that I notice about our Black children raised in Scotland, even in Britain in general, they seem to copy bad things they find in Britain. And the value of the thing they learn from their families, originally from the Congo, they don't really pay attention to that. They look at it as a danger, as a threat to their lives. And they start copying the bad things they found here. I keep telling this to the youth: always listen to your peers, okay? Always listen to your parents, and make sure that everything you do, it goes in the advantage of the way you lead your life. Have an objective in your life. If you don't have an objective in your life, you're not going to realize anything in your life. Dedicate yourself into your education. That is something that I don't know if the Black children realize that in Britain, in particular. You have the whole system education for you for free. School is free, hospital is free. And communities has programs that you can, go and develop your skills if you don't have any chance to continue at school. And there is another issue with our education system, because it's still a colonialized system where racism is still being taught within the curriculum. And that put away so many young children to continue to the mainstream education, so many Black children to go because they feel frustrated in the classroom because of what they're seeing in the classroom. My own daughter went through that, So those are the things that put these children off to go to school. And that is one of the fight I've started to do even before becoming rector of Edinburgh University. But what I'm trying to tell the youth, they need to have an objective about what they want to do in their life. And then stopping wasting time on stupid things, on stupid attractions, because there are some stupid ones. They're not getting you anywhere, but they're only getting you killed. Simple as that. So those are the things that they need to think about. But then more and more listening to their peers and listening to their parents. It's very important to tell that to the youth.
Great. And then so you talked about the curriculum and that's very important. And that touches also, because you're good with, you're doing my transitions for me. So that brings about the anti-racist, anti-Black need for education, even from K2 university, you know, as far as I'm concerned. So why is that important to have that curriculum? Because they will tell you that, you know, the Black presence in UK, when you look at the broader history, is so marginal. So they talk about the, you know, what needs to be taught, you know, in school. Why do you think it's important to teach about anti-racism, especially at a younger age and going through university? And that will bring us also to your campaign at the end, if you can touch on the Freedom Walk campaign. What is it all about, and why is it relevant?
One of the basic thing is to allow all school community or all academic community to feel comfortable while they're going through their education system. You know, as I told you, there are children, they refuse to return to the classroom because the lesson on that day was humiliative of being Black. Okay, for example, teaching about colonization while you see the Black on the chain. You know, you see one single Black boy in the classroom being thought that these people with the chain, this is the way they came to Europe, this is the way they made it to Africa. But they don't tell these children in the classroom that before that era, Africa had its empire, it has is a system of education. They don't teach the children the best of Africa, but they teach the predominance they have on Africa and the worst of the African people. That is why we need to tackle this education, because it has not adapted into the reality. It's true, there was colonization. The same Africans stopped colonizations and they built their own countries, they built their own government, even though they're not perfect, but they managed to get rid of slavery on both sides, because it wasn't only those in America or those in Europe who stopped it, there were also the Africans themselves who refused to continue with the trade. And that part of the history has not been taught to the children. They taught them just the worst part of it. So it's about to have all races, all children from all backgrounds throughout the education system to go through the education in dignity, not to humiliate one part or glorify the others. Okay, I've been to school, you've been to school throughout. Have you ever heard about white people killing each other? But if you look at the history of Europe, how many of white killed each other on predominance? But they never taught that in school. It's not on the curriculum. But the curriculum talk about a glorious Europe who fought Nazism, and then a glorious Europe who went to Africa and brought the African into the boat to work on throughout the Atlantic slave trade. So it's just the wrong way of educating people. And that's why I'm trying to say we need to work hard to have a fairer system of education that educate not the wrong, but the truth, simply.
That's good. And so what about the freedom? What's the whole deal with the Freedom Walk campaign? What is it all about?
The Freedom Walk campaign started back in June last year. And it was about my story as an African woman, an immigrant in Scotland, and the reality of being attacked by racists in order to have me out of the country, out of the city. And initially, when I started the Freedom Walk campaign, it was about us within the community living in peace, one another, respecting one another. And the idea was to look at the laws within Scotland and to reform the laws, to make social reforms, and also lobbying for a better way of living within the community. So that was initially. While we were trying to set up the whole Freedom Walk campaign, I mean, the whole world started following the Freedom Walk campaign. It was amazing. I was even surprised myself the way it came on. Then my daughter was a victim of humiliation in the classroom. So when my daughter was victim of that kind of humiliation, I decided to petition in Scottish Parliament about an anti-racist education through our system of education. And it was very simple. We were asking for teachers to be trained properly before teaching children in the classroom about any lesson in relation of colonization or race or racism, and the school to adapt an attitude to protect children who have been victims of racist attack in the classroom. Because until this day, someone who racially abuses a pupil in the classroom is not considered breaking the law. It's a behavior issue. So there will be a teacher who's going to call the boy, say, don't do that again. But he breaks the law. That's a hate crime. So that gap, the Freedom Walk campaign wanted to correct that gap and all together. And then the effect in schools is that many schools start talking about the racism they face in the classroom because of the Freedom Walk campaign. And the momentum was to have as much as a case that would push Parliament to vote for an anti-racist campaign, an anti-racist curriculum for the whole system in Scotland. Where we are now is that the Scottish government has decided to review all its curriculum, and they wrote to me and promised to me that all demand that the Freedom Walk campaign has made in terms of anti-racist education will be implemented in that new curriculum. But if it doesn't happen, they're better off, they just better do it, because if they don't do it this time, it's not going to be Debora Kayembe, it's going to be the Lord Rector of Edinburgh University who's going to come after them. So that's going to be very interesting to see. Definitely.
So now, just to end then, the after. So after you're not Lord Rector anymore, like you just retire, you take your pension, you go live a good life, or what's next after that? Or you just,
That's a question many Congolese keep asking me, what's going to happen after being Lord Rector of Edinburgh University? And some of them just go very dangerously saying, well, why don't you just return to the Congo and become prime minister straight away? And I keep saying to them, listen. I don't envy anyone right now, because I feel that I am the most blessed woman on earth right now. That's how I feel. And I want to feel that for quite a little time, a little longer, and then think what's going to happen after that. But I say this. The plan that I have as a Lord Rector of Edinburgh University is to work on education on the African continent as much as I can. Trying to implement a program that will help African children to get as much as best education they can. In the case of the Congo, I still advocate for this country. Maybe many people doesn't know that, but places I go where there is not a single Black person sitting on a table, I always advocate for the Congo. But I can't come in the public and say I was in this place and I talk about the Congo, I still advocate it for my country. But as I said, I have plan. I have really, really big plan for the rest of the world. As for the Congo, it's down to God. What he wants me to do for that country, I'll do it on time. That's what I can say.
All right, that's good. My question was more towards in terms of other campaigns are still involved, but that's good enough answer too. So, well, thank you very much, Lord Rector. Appreciate your time, appreciate your insight. And at the end of your first term or mandate, you got colleagues over there, I'll come back again so that we can have accountability. What have you done? What's done?
That would please me. That would please me very much. Yes.
So that we can have accountability. So that's it for us, guys. That was Conversations in Black with the Lord Rector of the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, in the UK. And thank you for watching and or listening if you're listening through a podcast. And we'll be back with another conversation with another guest. Thank you.
Hey man, yo kakampe. Africano.